Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Welcome to Game Over Cup Final. I'm here with two amazing people, Julian McKenzie, Peter Klein, and I see already in the comments that people miss Harnish and Armaan and Rahef, and Rahef will not be with us for Game Over Cup Final because she's vacationing in Jordan, having a way better time than all of us. So she won't be with us, but Harnish and Armaan will join us. So will Auddie throughout this cup final as we rotate our cast of Game Over hosts. But for now, you have us here. And before we get into it, we got to tell you, Sports Interaction has updated. Oh, sorry, that's not the part of the read. Get in on the Stanley Cup final action. Lightning versus Avalanche at Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook. Bet before the game starts, live in play. Or will Nikita Kucherov continue to lead the way for the Lightning? Doing it right since 1997, Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. So we saw one of the most thrilling game ones of a Stanley Cup final that I can remember. Two teams that are unquestionably elite. Speed and frenetic offense from the Colorado Avalanche, and pushback and defensive prowess and commitment from the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is exactly what we all wanted, right?
Yo, this is exactly what we wanted. When we looked at the matchup, we said we wanted high quality play from these two teams, and we at least got it in game one. I don't know how both coaches will adjust from here on out, and maybe we're going to be in for a dud or two. Sometimes that's what happens in these finals, but at least to start off the Stanley Cup final where we're getting two high quality teams, I don't think you could ask for a better start, honestly. Like, even the people who are all like, oh, I wanted to still see the goalies be good. Like, there weren't even 5 or 6 goals scored on each side. We didn't even get like an 8 or 9-6 game. 4-3, I think people can live with that. The offensive people, the defensive people, all that. We can all live with that scoreline. Plus an OT winner. Like, that was one of the more enjoyable cup final game experiences I've had in a while.
Mm. Oh, totally. And all due respect to Vasilevsky and any other goalie who gets into this, I hope they're miserable for the next couple of weeks. I want this to look like that. And this is what we want. And all due respect to the team that you guys have covered and to the Dallas Stars, but it hasn't looked like that with Tampa Bay before. And now
100%.
We are now getting the scene in the background of Julian there. We are getting Ali Fraser. We are getting the scene in Dark Knight Rises where Batman and Bane have thrown everyone aside and they're staring at each other and they're about to throw down, and we don't know what's going to happen. We just know it's going to be amazing for the next 2 weeks. And it was awesome. I have chills talking about it. I am so excited that we are getting the two best teams in the National Hockey League facing each other. And I know there's a lot of different ways we can go, but the one takeaway that I had coming out of this game, if I'm the other 30 NHL franchises and I even dream tomorrow that, oh, I'm close to these guys, I better wake up and apologize, because that's 2 Ali references in one rant. It is just so crazy how much better these two teams are than everyone else in the league right now. And we got it on full display in game one. It was amazing.
Dude, like the speed, the depth, yeah. There's so many other teams that do not have that. They would kill to have stuff like that. Just see, like, the Colorado Avalanche had Nathan MacKinnon doing his best to try to cut in and make chances happen, and they didn't even need him to be at his best because they still got goal scoring from all these different other players in their lineup, which I still think was a big asset for them entering this series. And Tampa, Andrew already mentioned, like, the pushback from them. Like, a team like Tampa, if you have them on the ropes, you have to bury them. But we've seen it in almost every round, with the exception of the Florida series, where when they seem to be down, they find some gear and wake up and then just kind of try to roll over teams. And they almost did that with the momentum that they were generating. Down 2-0, down 3-1, they found a way to come back. I know Andrei Vasilevsky a little tough on those first few goals, but he was able to keep his team in the game as long as he could up until the overtime. Just Tampa, like, I don't know if people are writing them off after game one because of how fast the Avalanche are. I still expect them to split. My expectation was that after game 2, it would be a 1-1 series. And if I'm Tampa, I feel pretty good about that game 1 because they were still able to hang in there. And I think they could, if they just clamp down a little bit better defensively, they could get game 2. Like, this is very much not over. And if people are thinking that, man, Colorado completely outclassed Tampa, you are so wrong.
Yeah, I feel like, on balance, Colorado was the better team, but Tampa was not run out of the building at any point, right? Like, even when it was 3-1, and I know that Colorado did hold a huge edge at even strength, the Tampa Bay Lightning they're another kind of team, right? And you're talking about the pushback, the ability that they have to just not be on the ropes or come back from being on the ropes. Nobody's been able to take them out. And
another alley reference.
Nobody's been able to take them out until somebody actually does it. I never believe it's going to happen, right? Like, I thought they would lose in the first round against Toronto just because I thought this team, after 2 years with shortened summers, with compressed seasons, during COVID, with all the injuries they've dealt with, they would be tired. They don't look tired. Like, I think they are easily the best team of this era.
Like, the reason why they don't look tired has to do a lot with some of those newer players like a Brandon Hagel or Nick Paul just bringing in that energy throughout the lineup. And I think when you see those guys get themselves going, you can't help but get yourself going along with those guys. But yeah, there's been so many instances where they look tired, they look down for the rest of the team anyway, but they still find a way to battle back through a series. And this just tonight was just one of those instances where instead of starting off a series, just, pretty much in the first round series against Toronto, they did this where in the opening game of the series, they allowed all those goals. They were out of it. I think at the start of the Rangers series, they were down. And I think that was where Vasilevsky allowed like 5 or 6 goals against the Rangers. We're like, oh, okay, the Rangers look really good. This game, they found a gear within themselves and said, okay, we are not letting this game get away from us. That was an impressive effort on the part of them battling back. And I still give them marks for the way that they played, even though that they lost. But again, Tampa is not out of the wood. Like, if you think they're going to lose this series, don't cross them off just yet. I really think if I'm Tampa Bay right now, I have no problem going into game 2 down 1-0. They would battle back. They've battled back before in the playoffs after being down 1-0 in a series. It's no time to panic for these guys. Not even with Vasilevsky.
And when you think about it, like, there's a very real chance we just saw Vasilevsky's worst game of the series. Yeah. And they still went to overtime. And they still, before overtime, Hedman had the puck in the slot, shorthanded, and it was a diving effort to take it away from him. Like, they were still that close to winning this game when they were, I would say, outplayed, and their goalie was at best, and they were still right there. And this team is always just right there. And you think of the adversity that they've gone through over the last little bit. I get everyone had a bit of an issue with how they handled the salary cap with the Kucherov thing. They still were a playoff team without one of the best players in the league. And then like, you look at last year, I believe it was last year, it all kind of blends. They had Steven Stamkos for like 25 seconds in the playoffs, and they still won. And this year, Brayden
Point scored.
Yeah, he came out, scored
on his one shift.
Out. Yeah. And like,
that was baller.
Year, oh man, one of the coolest things I've seen. And this year, like, Brayden Point just skips a couple of series because he's having a hip issue, and they look like the exact same team. This team has always faced adversity and just kind of laughed in its face. And even then, they pointed out on the broadcast tonight, it's 3-1. The crowd's going crazy. They're singing alt rock songs from the 90s. And John Cooper looks like he's watching scrimmage of like Timbits practice. Like, he is calm, cool, and collected. That's this whole team. That is what they are always going to be. They could be down 3-0 and down 4-0 in game 4, and I'm still not going to count them out. It's that clip that they played at the start of the NBA finals for years, that never underestimate the heart of a champion. Tampa Bay proves that time and time again. And we saw it again tonight.
Yes. I think it's the fact that, like, Tampa has played so many games. They've been in so many situations in the playoffs, and to bring back that year where they got thoroughly embarrassed by Columbus, like, I feel like there's a lot of guys who were on that team and experienced that. They feel, look, it cannot ever get any worse than what they endured. And like, there's something liberating about experiencing something like that and then just like not feeling too much pressure. Not to skip ahead here, but I want to shout out the Avalanche real quick. And even though they allowed 3 goals at the start of that game, I did not expect them to play as tight defensively as they did.
No kidding.
Like and I'm not just talking about the amount of shots that they allowed, which is like probably still in the 20s because they outshot the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. But in that first part of the game, especially, we're talking about zone entries being denied and turnovers being caused and odd man rushes, counterattacks going the other way. Like, I did not expect the Colorado Avalanche to look better defensively than Tampa. Everyone going into this series made the comment about how if Tampa wants to, they can have the 5 guys behind the line blocking shots, doing everything they can to preserve a lead or to help out Andrei Vasilevsky. But I feel as if with the way Colorado played defensively, using their sticks to create turnovers and turning it into offense, that's what stood out to me the most. And I wonder if Tampa was shocked at that. I just feel as if Colorado did so much, especially before Tampa was actually getting goals up on the board with the way they played defense. And I think they deserve a ton of credit for how they play.
100%. It's hard. 9 days, I think, or 8 or 9 days between games to come in and have that playoff like swagger, that effort, like the next effort, the timing, everything on point. Their practices must have been insanely intense. I know Jared Bednar has been a coach for a long time that I've looked at as like a very good playoff prep coach. He proved it again with the way his club prepared itself tonight. They were fantastic. Again, without Nazem Kadri, Sam Girard, obviously, I don't think he's coming back at all for sure.
No, he's not coming back at all.
No.
And like Kadri, I think is close, but not a guarantee. So there's something there. Like they've missed some big time players and they did dominate at even strength tonight. They were by far the better team. And, you know, Cale Makar was a little bit off in terms of like his offense. He was doing good things, but he couldn't get the puck on the net. Strange game for him, but overall, really impressive game from the Colorado Avalanche. I'll throw a question to you guys because I think a lot of what Julian's talking about with the Colorado Avalanche and the commitment to defense and being a bit surprising, I feel like the Avalanche kind of get shortchanged a little bit on the defensive side because people look at the goals against in these playoffs and the blown leads. But a lot of that has been Darcy Kuemper. Now, I wonder if the Avalanche didn't pay an arm and a leg for Darcy Kuemper in this offseason, would he have started this game with the way he's played in these playoffs compared to Pavel Francouz?
That's an interesting question.
I think he probably would have. NHL teams are kind of weird about like, this guy was our starter. You can't lose your job to injury. So we're going to stay behind our guy and go with that. If that's the right decision to make, I don't know. But I think Colorado would have just because teams do tend to stay a little bit loyal to their guys.
I will agree with Peter here. Like, I mean, pretty much up until like last year where we saw the big money matchup with Andrei Vasilevsky and Carey Price, we've actually been seeing for the last pretty much since the salary cap has been a thing, we've actually seen quite a handful of games, quite full of Stanley Cup matchups where the goalies on either side, or at least on one side, they're not making all that much. So say they paid Darcy Kuemper like way less, but he was really good. I don't think money is the biggest thing that holds them back here in making a decision. So yeah, I think if Darcy Kuemper was the guy, whether he's making 1.6 or 6 million, they put him in.
All right. I wonder if it was the smartest decision. I don't think he was awful tonight. Like, I know he was taking a lot of shots. I think the third goal he allowed was not great, frankly, the Sergachev goal. But I saw a lot of people talking, like, at the point when he allowed 3 goals, like, 3 goals on 15 shots. He's really blowing this game. Vasilevsky also allowed 3 goals in the first 15 shots. It's just that after that, he was a brick wall for 2 periods, you know, but I feel like that's what you expect from Vasilevsky is like, he's going to be able to shut the door. And as much as like from the Avalanche point of view, I look at this series and I'm worried, can Kuemper match Vasilevsky? But it's clear from tonight, like he doesn't necessarily have to match Vasilevsky. He has to be able to hold them in it until they can get past Vasilevsky. I think that's the biggest challenge for Tampa in this is, can they actually slow down the Colorado Avalanche? And we had a question in the stream chat saying, do you guys think game 2 is a must-win game for the Lightning? Personally, I do. The Lightning came back down 2 against the Rangers. The Rangers are not the Colorado Avalanche.
No, I think if you, I think if you're Tampa Bay, an opportunity for you to win game 2 and then go back to your home ice for the next 2 games and generate that momentum and try to sustain it. that's always better than trying to battle back from 2-0 and making it tough on yourself. That being said, yes, the Tampa Bay Lightning are coming off a series where they did that. And I still think with the way that game one went and the experience that John Cooper's had in these postseasons, it wouldn't surprise me if the game plan kind of changes a little bit. They play a lot better defensively and they find a way to neutralize this Colorado Avalanche offense, and they steal game two in some way. So it wouldn't actually be a surprise to me. I consider it a must win for them. And yeah, I actually envision a scenario where it's like 1-1 after 2 games.
I don't think it's a must win just yet. In part, I kind of have to double down. I just went on a long soliloquy about how Tampa Bay's never out of it. So it would be weird for me to then say, oh, 2-0, they're screwed. So just to say that I'm right, I'm going to say it's not necessarily a must win. But like we were talking about before, this Tampa Bay Lightning team has seen every situation and have come out of it all right over the last couple of years. And so while down 2-0 against Colorado would not be ideal, the momentum of that, I think, stops as soon as they enter their home arena and that place is going at full tilt in ways that only they can do, right? They got weird lightning going on everywhere. Like, I think that place is going to be nuts. And right as soon as they walk in that door, that momentum is gone. We saw it in the Rangers series. We saw it at times against the Leafs as well. Like that place, as much as we like to make fun of Florida, that place is a bit of a different animal. So I don't think that dropping the first couple in Colorado would be an absolute death sentence. I wouldn't recommend it, but I don't think it absolutely kills them.
I think I want to just add this one thing because I'm trying to remember if I think I overheard this on a Twitter space earlier today, and you can double check me if I'm wrong here. I don't think the Colorado Avalanche have lost a game on the road in the playoffs this year. I need to double check that for myself, but I don't think they have. And if that is very much the case, then game 2 is everything, because especially if you go down 2-0 in a series and then you have to go home and a team that's been really good on the road, you want to give yourself every opportunity to make the journey back a little easier. So I would consider if I need to, again, I overheard it earlier in the day. I probably should have double checked it for myself before I came on here, but considering how good Colorado's been all postseason, I don't think I'm that wrong in saying that they've been good on the road this postseason. So if you're Tampa Bay, you should get out of Dodge with at least one win in Colorado before you go home.
I mean, they've only lost twice the whole playoffs. So
yeah.
Odds are pretty good.
There's a pretty good chance. Pretty good chance of right.
No kidding.
You don't have a lot to play with on that one. Yeah. But no, and that's a fair point. Like Colorado is just, like we said before, they're just better than everybody. So it is tricky to fall behind 2-0. But I just feel like we saw in this game, like I would suggest falling behind 3-1 in Colorado isn't a great way to go about things. And they do end up losing this game. But like we talked about before, they came damn close to not losing this game. So I still think that there would be a little bit more for this Tampa Bay team to give, even down 2-0.
Yeah. One thing that keeps coming up in my head, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Dmitry Filipovich tweeted this. It's like 9 days ago now. Cale Makar and Devin Taves have been in the lineup now after this game 79 times together for the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I know that Nikita Kucherov and Andre Palat made them look hilariously bad for a second there on that second Tampa Bay Lightning goal, which was absolutely friggin' gorgeous. But together, when those guys are in the lineup for the Colorado Avalanche this year, they are 64, 9, and 6.
Jeez.
And I just look at that and I'm like, you're not beating that team in 7 games. You know, they are too strong. Like, I thought the Oilers with McDavid and Draisaitl just playing on fuego and, you know, Mike Smith running hot and cold, that they'd maybe steal a couple, at least one, and the Avalanche would just, no, it's not happening. Man. And I think the Tampa Bay Lightning will steal a couple, but I cannot bet against the Avalanche in this. Like, they are so friggin' good, and we got to give them their flowers, right?
We got to remember this is all off one game, because
for sure.
and a lot of times we see in the playoffs, what we see in game 1 does not always carry over into game 2. That being said,
different vibes for Arturi Lehkonen after this game 1 than last year, eh?
Very true. Very true.
Last year, true. Completely run out of the building, right? And this year, very different.
The Lightning did not. I mean, they only lost the one game in that series. I think they would make the point too. I don't think they were down by 2 goals at any point in that Stanley Cup final last year against the Montreal Canadiens, and they found themselves down 2 pretty early on in that first period. That was a very remarkable game played by Colorado. I'll say this about Devon Toews. Renewed appreciation or newfound appreciation for the way that he plays defense in that pairing. We look at how Cale Makar plays in the skating ability. I think he's the closest we have in the NHL to a point guard in the NBA with the head fakes and the skating ability and what he's able to do. Devon Toews is able to provide that offensive ability, but what he's able to do on defense, I saw that a lot in the Edmonton series where a play is developing with a one-on-one situation with 2 other completely different guys, and Devon Toews is able to kind of swoop in on a shot and just provide that extra safety help for a teammate trying to block a play. Like he's been doing so much of that throughout this postseason. He's been such a help for Cale Makar, and yeah, he looked a little silly on that Nikita Kucherov play, but who among us hasn't looked silly trying to defend one of the best forwards in the National Hockey League?
Well, I mean, we haven't because we've never tried it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but like the thing with Cale Makar, like he is so different from actually anyone I've seen in the NHL. Yes. In that, like a lot of times when before him, the talk about mobile defensemen was, oh, you're just a winger who can't score very well, so we put you on the blue line, right? Like it's Erik Karlsson where we talk ourselves into, he improved defensively, and it's guys like that where it's like they skate really well, but really they're offensive defensemen. We've never seen someone skate that well, play so well offensively, and be able to shut down Connor McDavid and for 63 minutes Nikita Kucherov, aside from one little whoop-de-doo. Like we've never seen someone that good. And when he does want to get all crazy and skate up ice, you have Toews behind him who is able to kind of be that rock for him. And again, the thought that Colorado, what was it, 2 seconds that they gave up for this guy who's on like a 75% winning percentage with this team is unbelievable. But that pairing is perfect. And I really think Makar is the start of another evolution of defensemen in the National Hockey League.
He's he's the prototypical guy you should want as a mobile defenseman. Between him and Adam Fox, if you're trying to envision what a mobile offensive defenseman should look like, it comes down to those 2 guys. I know Victor Hedman, a lot of people still put him up on a pedestal. A lot of people didn't feel he played all that well tonight in game 1, but that's a different issue. But we still think of Victor Hedman as one of the premier defensemen in this league. But I think going forward with the way that the game looks, the way that teams like Colorado look, we can even throw Edmonton in there a little bit as well. Tampa still has it there. You need someone like a Cale Makar on your team or an Adam Fox or anyone of that ilk, I think, if you really want to be taken seriously. Also, I'm not sure what hurts worse for the Islanders or the Flyers, like having Cale Makar go 4th overall in the draft or giving up whatever price you gave up to get Devon Toews. Like Colorado just got those guys for, I don't want to say for practically nothing, but the fact that they were able to make some moves to get them, like, give your head a shake. Bobby Clark is still pissed. He's still pissed.
Do you this is totally off topic, but just one word answers. Do you actually believe Bobby Clark when he says they wanted Cale Makar? Or do you think that's hindsight bias?
Yes, I believe him.
I don't.
Not for a second. I'd be doing the exact same thing. I would be banging the table for whoever, and then 10 years later writing books about how, look, I was the only one saying Cale Makar, man. I don't know.
That's my thought. I believe Cale Makar was a controversial pick back then, right? Because he'd only played in, I think it was like the AJHL, right? Or BCHL, one of the 2.
No, AJHL.
So like that's not a league that you usually take guys in the top 5. There's rare times like Jonathan Toews, right? Well, I think Jonathan Toews went into college early, so he was beyond that. So it's usually not a feeder league for the top of the draft, right? No one really knew what his ascension was going to look like. So I just don't believe Bobby Clark. Maybe he wanted somebody else other than Nolan Patrick. I believe that part, but I don't believe the Cale Makar line, just because I think that was wasn't off the board, but that was still like not a for sure pick when Colorado took him. We have some people in the chat here mentioning Bo Byram as a guy who made things happen tonight. And, as the third guy behind Makar and Toews, he was phenomenal and has been phenomenal all season. I think Bo Byram is going to win the Masterton next year. I don't know if you guys have read Peter Baugh's amazing coverage of the issues that he's dealt with concussions over the last couple of years, and how it looked like his career was actually in jeopardy because of it. He's been so incredible in the playoffs, and even though he only got a secondary assist on the Gabe Landeskog goal, his driving at the net on that play opened up the entire lane for that puck to go through and created that goal. So absolutely, people in the stream chat shouting out Bowen Byram, who's only 21 years old. Fantastic game from him tonight.
I thought he was one of their best players. I thought he was excellent all night. And yeah, the concussion stuff, that's it's something that I've dealt with, obviously at different levels than he has. But I've had to wear sunglasses going to work, and sometimes that is not an easy thing. And I just talk into a microphone to have to recover from that and then turn into a professional hockey player and play at what we have discussed is the highest level this sport's been played at is remarkable. And what he's been able to do, it's a great story. And to see him out there, not just playing, but thriving was great to see.
Man, just the fact that he is a part of this Colorado defense core, which should be good for a very long time. I know Sam Chicot's not available to them right now, but a defense core with Makar, Taze, Byram, Girard, and then, Eric Johnson. Who knows what his future will be after this. But just as a top four, I think that's pretty great for them going forward. I know they don't have Girard this postseason, but that is just such a dope core to have on defense.
Yeah.
It really does. This whole series is it's making me look at every NHL team differently. I'm Game Over Calgary here, and I can't imagine being the Flames and watching this series and going, well, thank God we have a chance to pay Eric Goodbranson next year. It changes how you look at every player. This is the new level that everyone has to get to. And it feels like everyone is so far back from that, save from maybe a healthy Vegas. But even that, it's I'm looking at them a little bit fishy now too. This whole series is just changing the level I think you need to get to consider yourself a consistent winner in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
I don't think the Rangers are that far off. Personally, I think
they can get there. They've got the good pieces, right? But
that's it. They have a good
their
foundation.
Younger guys have to take the next step. I think we started to see that in the Tampa Bay series. Ironically, that kid line was their best line. My question for the Rangers, and we probably shouldn't talk too much about the Rangers for this show, but I just wonder if their kids are going to mature fast enough for Panarin, Zibanejad, and Kreider to still be effective. I think that's their disconnect, right? It's something that the Canadians dealt with their how separate their core was, right? They had their older guys and their younger guys, and there was nothing really in the middle. Their Price and Webbers and Petries, and then their younger guys coming up. And, speaking about the Canadians, looking at the blue lines of the teams in this, if the Canadians trade Jeff Petrie this offseason, their best defenseman's Alex Romanov.
At least
it's a long way to go. It's an uphill
the
battle.
Canadians are not expected to compete that well next year anyway.
No,
so
if you're trying to get Connor Bedard, that is a fine blue line, okay?
Yeah, like Alex Romanov being your best defenseman in that particular case, I don't think there's too much to complain about there.
No, for sure. But it's just Peter was saying, you see how far most teams are from these two teams, right? In terms of a complete roster, the depth that they have. It's a reality check it's one of those finals where, yes, you have this fantastic series going on, but it is a reality check for every other team in the league. It's not even about style. It's about how deep these two teams are. There's just no escape from them. And I'm excited for hopefully a lot of teams to take the right lesson from this final and just build good rosters instead of worrying about specific roles. Because that's one thing that I do like about the Tampa Bay Lightning being back here again, is that they have a very smart process in how they do everything, right? Who's replaceable, who's not, who to pay, who not to pay. So I am glad that they keep on getting rewarded for their good decision making.
I also think it's so cool that a team like Tampa, can just say to hell with first round picks, because we're going to be good for a long time and we know how to draft and we have enough guys in the minor league system who can fill in those roles and play well enough for us anyway. It's really cool to see how Julien Brisebois has maneuvered through all the cap challenges and the lineup challenges that have come to this team over the last how many years. It's one of the most impressive jobs we've seen in the salary cap era. So whenever I hear people say like, oh, they played through the salary cap, they had 18 mil on LTIR, I'm just like, well, come on. It's something that's available to everybody, and they were able to use it to their advantage. That should not be seen as like cheating or people. No one should be like, dumping on the Lightning for this. We should be commending Julien Brisebois for building a roster with the challenges that have come to his team.
Well, and it's not like they took a ball peen hammer to Kucherov's
I'd give you a standing
either.
ovation. Like, I agree completely. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard, but I was just saying, it's not like they took a ball peen hammer to Kucherov's hip to put him out for the season, right? Like, he legitimately needed surgery. They didn't even know when the season was going to start when he got the surgery, right? Like, if you guys remember, all that was up in the air because of COVID. So it just happened that he took the whole year off, and like maybe he could have come back and played the last couple games of the season. But there's a difference between being healthy enough to play and being healthy enough to play in the playoffs. And I think if you go back and watch those games, Kucherov was probably not healthy enough to play for the first round. He just played because it was the playoffs.
And the Lightning still won.
Right. Ask Vegas this year how easy it is to just, we'll just throw a couple guys in LTIR and it'll be fine. Their playoff run was not overly illustrious, if I recall, or non-existent. Like that's really freaking hard to do, and it just this really does to me. And maybe I'm just overstating it because I'm buzzing after one game, but it really does feel to me kind of like Boston in 2011, where the whole league is watching this and it's like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do. Now, some teams overcorrected way too much with big bruising hockey or whatever, but it really does feel like this is this is where the sport is heading now, instead of, this is cute. Like this feels like a fork in the road moment for a lot of teams.
100%.
I'm not sure how much you can dump on teams wanting to be more talented and getting higher quality players, right?
No, that's perfect.
It's perfect for teams. It's perfect for everyone watching at home. And especially if you are a network like an ESPN getting the rights to the product, where it's getting into more and more houses. No disrespect to Versus and NBC Sports before them, but a lot of people, even though they've cut the cord in recent years with ESPN, a lot of people still watch ESPN. And with the way that they've promoted the product and made the NHL look over this last year, just making it look shiny and making it look nice, like no better time than now to have the game start to transition to seeing more skill, more offense, more dynamic play, as opposed to bruising, slow, less attractive hockey. And shout out to TNT too. They deserve a lot of credit for what they've done in the States. And of course for us in Canada with Sportsnet and what they're doing, and TSN with the regional coverage.
Yeah, we got a question here from the SDPN admin, which I believe is Jesse Blake. Says, coming up next, would the Leafs have beaten the Avs in the Stanley Cup final? Because as we know, the Leafs are, for the third time in 4 years, the second best loser of the first round, facing off against a team that makes the Stanley Cup final, but all of them have lost, I believe.
No. Not Leafs are not. Look, no disrespect to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They held their own against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They did everything they could and threw pretty much everything but the kitchen sink against those guys, and they still lost in that game 7. They're not beating the Colorado Avalanche. I understand they had the regular season game. They could go back on that. They also had that crazy 8-3 game or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, they did have an 8-3 game. Someone will put that in the comments. They're not beating the Colorado Avalanche in the Stanley Cup final, if that was the case. You see what they did today? Did you not see what game 1 looked like? They're not beating them. Nope.
No, it ain't happening. Not right now.
It ain't happening. No, sir.
I think they would have beat the teams that Tampa Bay beat on the path to here, but it would have been a spectacular ass kicking tonight if Toronto would have got to this point. Like it would have been, in Space Jam when Michael Jordan strikes out and the guy said, "Yeah, at least you make missing look good." That's what Toronto would have done. They would have made a 7-1 loss look good in this game.
They would have locked up Austin Matthews down. They would have locked him down. I think they would have done so. Mitch Marner, I think he would have had some issues as well. People get dumping on John Tavares. You know what I sometimes do? I sometimes look at those old YouTube videos from like 4 years ago when everyone was so happy that John Tavares joined. Why is it that everyone just kind of turned around on John Tavares all of a sudden? People are trying to want him out. You know how people were crying about the bed sheets 4 years ago? They're all like, get this man out of this city. Can you imagine him in that Stanley Cup final against Colorado? Hell no. Nah. The Avalanche are winning that damn series in 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, it might even be 4, honestly.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about Toronto. I know we brought
that
up
concludes
20
Leafs Corner.
That concludes Leafs Corner. Andrew's Leafs History Corner. Failure. Anyway, we brought up 2011 and the Bruins. There was a comment in the stream chat at the very beginning of the show that I wanted to get back to at some point, which was Burakovsky's OT winner in game 1 here was the fastest OT winner in the Stanley Cup Finals since Alex Burrows in 2011 against the Boston Bruins.
Oh.
So it reminded me of a piece of trivia for any Vancouver Canucks fans who happen to be here. I'm sorry, I'm going to ruin your day. No team in NHL history has ever lost in the Stanley Cup Final in 7 games. No team who's ever won or not won a cup before. So no team that has no history of winning cups, except for the Vancouver Canucks, who've done it twice. Game 7 losses in the Stanley Cup Final. They're the only team to never win to do it. How sad.
Oh, that's tough for Vancouver, man. Can I bring up another stat that actually has to do with Andrei Vasilevskiy? Just pull this up because the Athletic just tweeted this. Andrei Vasilevskiy in game 1s this postseason, a 1-3 record, a 3.99 GAA, and an 884 save percentage. That is his record in game 1s throughout the playoffs. And games 2 through 7 in the playoffs, 11-3, 1.9 GAA, and a 939 save percentage.
A little bit different.
Very different games 2 through 7. That's another reason why I think the Lightning are going to win game 2.
Yeah, there was a Leafs fan in the chat earlier as well that was saying that the tough thing about Tampa is they play like a different team in games 5 through 7. So the Colorado Avalanche got to lock this down early to avoid late series Lightning because they are a scary, scary monster.
Yeah, they got to bury them. I think Toronto has shown this where they were doing the back and forth with them. The New York Rangers had a 2-0 series lead. If you're Colorado, if you're Jared Bednar right now, with the 1-0 series lead that you have, game 2, we were talking about how much of a must win it is for Tampa. You can make the argument it's a must win for Colorado because, again, any opportunity for Tampa, they will rise at the occasion and they will find a way to battle back in a game or a series and find a way to win. If you're Colorado and you have an opportunity to put the reigning cup champion on the ropes, you have to take that shot. I think if you're game 2, you have to make this a must win and you cannot rest on your laurels. It has to be a win.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. Like guys up off the mat.
No, this is a Tampa Bay team that just a couple of weeks ago lost back-to-back playoff games for the first time since the guy in this painting over my shoulder, Kawhi Leonard, was still with the Raptors. Like this team just does not lose back-to-back games. So like all this cliches about championship pedigree, that this team, what those cliches are about. They are incredible in these types of situations. And a lot of it stems from that goalie who is kind of charting out his own legacy in this series as well.
100%. All right, guys. Was there anything else that you noticed in this game? I've got a couple things written down, but I don't know if they're like big topics or anything. Like Nick Paul, he only scores highlight reel goals. Okay? I don't know who the hell this guy is.
Was that a highlight reel goal, or was that just like
Kemper played it badly, but he still pulled it off.
Kemper and Eric Johnson played that badly. If you look at the replay and you see how Eric Johnson is like turning around, and he doesn't have him in front of him. He misplays that whole thing badly. Yes, it gets to a whole point where the puck's kind of loose and Darcy Kemper doesn't get to it. But I think the only reason why it turns into the play that it does, I think like Eric Johnson kind of overcommits a little bit and he ends up like having to chase Nick Paul. If he kind of goes back a little bit, he keeps him in front of him, maybe it's a different play. But I think Eric Johnson unfortunately deserves a little bit of blame on how that play went. It was more of a broken play than anything.
Yeah, it was a bit of a, someone should get him. Oh, I'm that someone. Oh, dang. It was
that's me.
Yeah, just a step too late.
All right, we'll do one last thing. Game 1 impressions for the rest of the series. Give me your X factor for each team in the series. This could be positive or negative. Someone who could swing the series. Don't say Nikita Kucherov or Nathan McKinnon or Kale McCarr. Give us somebody deeper in the lineup who could swing this series each way. Let's go Peter first.
I'm going to say for Tampa Bay, it's Cirelli. I think when you look at the kind of both these sides stacked up, on the one side on Colorado, this game will forever and always be known as the Valeri Nichushkin game. And Burakovsky scores the overtime winner. I thought Palat played fine, but I thought Cirelli, he takes a penalty that was a little bit soft, but it's still a penalty. Colorado scores on the 5-on-3, and it was kind of, again, this game goes to overtime, but it kind of felt like that was the moment where this was Colorado's game. I think if he can kind of step up, he's going to be very important on the penalty kill because that power play is stupid good. I think there are a number of different ways where Cirelli impacts this game, where he's going to have to be the guy to kind of step it up here for Tampa Bay.
I look at what Colorado can do, and I can't help but think of Darcy Kemper or whoever ends up in net, depending on how Darcy Kemper is feeling. I think for goaltenders in the playoffs, I think for teams, it doesn't matter if you don't have the goaltender, you need to have a goaltender. And we all know going into this series that Andrei Vasilevsky on paper was going to look better than Darcy Kemper or whoever the Colorado Avalanche were going to throw out. It's on Darcy Kemper to hold the fort and be solid as his team tries to do well offensively and tries to kind of maintain its shape defensively. I don't think the Colorado Avalanche necessarily need him to steal games against this team. They don't need him to steal games against Lightning, considering how they play. They just need him to be solid. And I think if he can kind of keep himself upright, like I think that's enough for the Colorado Avalanche to go forward. I think that's the case on Colorado, and I'm with Peter here. Like Effie Cirelli, a lot is being asked from him to go up against the Nathan McKinnon line and to be good defensively. I think he is ultimately going to be the big X factor on the Lightning side.
Yeah, and for weird game for Cirelli, as much as he looks good, he always looks good. A goal against while he was on the ice tonight, only the 7th goal against that he's been on for in this postseason. He's been incredible defensively. So my X factors, I'm going to say Eric Cernak for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Just last year in the final, he was always a guy who was just throwing the Canadians off. And I look at him, he's so underrated. I think he's such a big part of that defense core for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think he's going to be a big part of this series. And the physical play that he brings, along with the skating ability, I think is going to frustrate some guys on the Avalanche as the game goes on. And for the Avalanche, said it before the series, JT Compher. While Kadri's been out, JT Compher has stepped up. And I really liked his play tonight. I really liked his play the last series. I think he's having this moment to show how good of a player he really is, stepping up in Kadri's absence. And like lots of guys are, but at even strength, I really like JT Compher.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Lehkonen, Nichushkin, we've mentioned before, Burakovsky, the hero. Darren Helm has stepped up as well. Didn't even mention guys like Alex Newhook and Nicolas Aube-Kubel. Like they have depth on that bottom six that they can use at will. And it sucks that a guy like Nazem Kadri is not available to them, and it doesn't look as if he'll be available to them until later in this series. But we cannot discount how good the rest of the forward depth has been for the Colorado Avalanche, especially in his absence. Like they have a really good team from top to bottom. There's a reason why they've scored 69 goals all postseason long. They are able to get goal scoring from every single line that they have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm also realizing I forgot to give my X factor for Colorado, in part because I couldn't think of one and just paused, hoping someone else would pick it up. But I'm going to go Erik Johnson, because I think specifically when this series goes back to Tampa Bay, when the Lightning are able to play the matchups, they are going to move heaven and earth to try to get their top line away from the Makar-Taves unit that we just discussed. And I think a lot of that responsibility is then going to fall on Erik Johnson. And I think Tampa Bay is hoping it will be more the loses Nick Paul Erik Johnson than the shutdown defenseman. So I think he could be someone when this series goes back to Tampa Bay and they're able to take advantage of some of the matchups. I think he's someone who needs to not be able to be taken advantage of in those matchups.
100%. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining us on the first episode of Game Over Cup Final. It's been a blast. Happy Pride Month. We'll see you again on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Thanks to Julian. Thanks to Peter. you know where to find them. Their social media is linked in the description. It's linked in the stream chat. We'll be back with you shortly, and this is going to be the best cup final we've seen in a very long time, if this game is any indication. I am so excited for it. I'm so here for it. Let's go. Let's friggin' go. We'll see you on